Social media is their reality.
Yeah, if I'm feeling down, then I'll look on those things and they'll just make it worse.
They have designed their algorithms and their networks exactly to cater to human pathology in its most extreme forms.
I originally set out to make a documentary that explored the possible positive benefits of diminished or controlled social media use. What I actually uncovered was something far, far darker.
I'm in a bit of shock, really. I shouldn't be, because I saw this coming a long, long time ago, but it's still shocking when it arrives. New York and other states are following have passed a law that allows babies to be killed right up to birth. Indeed, in truth, afterwards. And, I've been uncovering what I've called the death cult for all these years. And one of the biggest blocks on people seeing the depth of evil that is running this world is that they just cannot grasp the depth of evil, because they don't necessarily see it in their own lives and in their own circle of friends. They can't conceive that it can exist at the scale that it does. But it does. And this is another example of the death cult going public. The death cult, which plays out, of course, through things like Satanism, is an obsession with death. It's actually an inversion of life. It's so appropriate that the word evil, if reversed, becomes the word live. And this Governor Cuomo in New York has now created a situation, and like I say, other states are following, because it's meant to be all-encompassing. It's meant to be all over the place eventually, including in Europe, everywhere, where a child that could fully function by itself outside of the womb is legally allowed to be killed. And beyond that, the definition of what they call personhood, i.e. you are a living entity, is now deemed to start with birth. So children in the womb have no protection any longer under these laws. And it's even reached the point under this legislation that if you damage or attack a pregnant mother and kill the child, then that's not murder any longer, because the child in the womb is not considered a person. And when you go into the gruesome nature of it, they're talking about very late, right up to birth, stimulating cardiac arrest in the child. And then the mother gives a stillbirth. Now, in terms of abortion, I see arguments on both sides, and it's pretty sensible to do that, rather than just take a position and be immovable. I mean, people who say a woman has a right to choose have a strong argument, and people who say they're against the killing of developing children in the womb have a strong argument from their point of view. And so it's right to have this debate and let everybody have their opinion. That's what debate's about. That's what human society should be about. But when you are allowing a child to become basically within the womb full term, and up to that point the child can be legally killed, then you are in a very dark place, I would say, from my opinion. And it's more than that. As I keep saying, wherever we are is not where it's meant to stay. These are steps on a road. And up to this point, we've only reached where we are now. And why this situation now with the killing of children legally to the point of birth, not in the early formation of cells, but a fully functioning child. Why this is important is because it's an indicator of where we are being taken, and something I've warned about for a very long time. Now we have reached the point where children up to birth can be legally killed. Where's the next point? Where's the next point? And I know people say, oh no, they'd never do that. How many people thought they would ever see laws passed that allow fully functioning babies to be killed at will, quite legally? You say that a few years ago, even less than a few years ago, people say, no, they'd never do that. There's a phrase, never say never. And this death cult never says never because it has no limits. And this is a step on the road to infanticide beyond birth. This is also eugenics. It's an extraordinary story and an extraordinary confirmation of how far down this road the death cult has taken human society. And again, it's this progressive mentality, as it's called, killing children up to birth, fully functioning children, is progressive, apparently. And this progressive mentality is actually fascism. That's what it is. And in this extreme, it is satanic fascism. They normally go together. If you go deep enough into fascism, you'll find Satanism. And I watched an interview just now with a lady called Monica Klein on the Tucker Carlson show in America. He did a very good package on this story. And if you go to davidicke.com and if it's not still on the page when you look at it on the main page, then if you put into the search engine infanticide, Tucker Carlson infanticide, you'll get the package. And I do recommend, not for pleasure, mind, but I do recommend you watch the interview. If you see the package and then up to that interview and then watch that interview with this lady called Monica Klein, she absolutely personifies the progressive mentality, its arrogance, its myopia, its inhumanity. Because she's asked again and again, what do you think about these laws that allow children to be killed up to birth? And she refuses to answer and just goes on and on and on from this software mind she calls her own, saying that all it's about, all this criticism, is stopping a woman's right to choose. Well, you know, like I say, both sides in the abortion debate have very credible views. But surely it's not credible to bring us into this state where fully functioning children, up to seconds, minutes before operating independently outside of the womb, can be killed. That is a death cult. And it's amazing that this progressive mindset that has absolutely swallowed whole the Democratic Party in America and is swallowing whole more and more parts of the Republican Party, that they can call a wall on the southern border immoral, while at the same time supporting full-term killing of children. And, you know, these things can only be understood in context when they are connected to everything else. I'm just watching this Carlson show this morning. You had the story of infanticide, just what it is, becoming law. And this was followed by a story about the same New York State passing laws that give illegal immigrants who are in the country illegally, giving them health care, education, and other financial support that Americans do not get. American citizens do not get. Now, my view on healthcare is that everyone should get it. I think it's a basic foundation expression of human decency. Why should someone who's ill not get health care because they are undocumented or don't have the money? For me, if someone's in trouble, then they should be helped. The point is this, however, that you are seeing laws passed providing this financial support in healthcare, education, etc. in the United States for non-documented people who have no legal right to be in the country, who are actually breaking the law, and those payments are not available for citizens of the United States. Now that is systematic bias. And, I could talk for hours about this and all the connections, but there is a increasingly blatant agenda in the United States and in Europe to transform those societies. And if you want to see how they are planned to be transformed, look at what is allowed, what is given out in financial support, who gets it and who doesn't. Because that's just a straight political choice. We're going to have payments for this group, but not this group. That's not happened organically. That's a political choice, a cold political choice, and it's happening so much more all the time, becoming more and more obvious that it's clear there is an agenda. I mean, hello. And if you go deeper and deeper into this whole death cult and its desire for transformation of human society, you'll see where this full-term infanticide law fits in. And, this death cult takes so many expressions. And, of course, the biggest one it takes is war. Because it's so difficult, and my goodness, I understand it. Because it's so difficult for people who aren't psychopaths or extreme psychopaths, beyond the word psychopath, really, because that's where these people are. It's very, very hard to comprehend the level of psychopathy that we're talking about, the level of pure, undiluted, life-reversed evil that we're looking at. But you look at the wars now. Now, you take the one in Yemen, being imposed upon Yemen by Saudi Arabia with military and other support from the West, America, Britain, usual suspects. People who aren't psychopaths would look at that and be appalled. These people would get off on it. That's the scale of difference between the mentality of most of the population, although there's more psychopaths in this world than people will ever appreciate. People think psychopaths are just serial killers. That's what psychopaths are. No. They can manifest themselves as serial killers. And what's the greatest expression of serial killing than a war? What is serial killing but killing children full term? But what psychopathy is, its bottom line, its top characteristic, is a lack of empathy. Having no empathy with the feelings of people you affect. And on that basis, psychopathy is enormously more widespread than people appreciate. And I've got this story in front of me about this these infanticide laws. It says here, because the law defines personhood, I mentioned this earlier, because the law defines personhood as beginning at birth, anyone who abuses a pregnant woman will no longer face charges for harming the baby inside her. Protections for babies have been stripped, including provisions that protect babies that are born alive from gruesome botched abortions. Abusive partners, parents, drunk drivers, and back alley abortionists will no longer be charged with murder if they take the life of a child up to birth. Even if the mother wanted her child, no charges can be filed if a vindictive partner poisoned her with chemicals that caused an abortion. Because abortion is now a fundamental right up to birth, future legislatures cannot vote to defund abortion. Taxpayers have no choice and are forced to fund abortions indefinitely. The law says the state cannot control or deny, regulate, or restrict abortion. This means minors are now freely encouraged to have an abortion at any moment during their pregnancy without parental consent. Because the state now requires doctors and nurses to carry out abortions on full-term babies if the mother feels her life is at risk, they can now lose their job if they refuse to perform the procedure or if they try to help the mothers make another decision. Forcing medical professionals to sever lives of babies will take an emotional and mental toll on their conscience, putting them in a heartbreaking position. Morally grounded healthcare professionals won't have a choice, and they won't be able to speak out about this unashamed era of infanticide they are forced to take part in. And like I say, I'm not arguing for or against abortion at a much earlier stage. But when we reach a point where children in the womb who could by that stage fully function as human beings outside the womb, that is killing a fully functioning human being. That is murder by any criteria except by these laws. And what it means is, you see, the sickness of these people is just extraordinary. It's just almost incomprehensible. But death is their religion. That's what they want. As much death, as much suffering as possible. And, well, the death cult is now more and more on public display.